Didn't see it yet.
It just takes a few seconds.
Okay.
Okay, we're recording.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Planning Committee. I have a little formal reading I have to remind you. May I remind everybody present that the meeting will be recorded via the internet and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback? If a committee member wishes to speak, please can they use the hands up facility, put their hand up on the application. If that cannot be seen, please shout out. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard, then they should contact Democratic Services or the chairman as soon as is possible. If they have a webcam, it is best to try turning this off. It may help your broadband width, so at least we can hear you clearly. If required, participants can dial into the meeting using a telephone number provided on the invite. If for any technical reason any person party to the proceedings is unable to hear, then the hearing will be adjourned for a short time to allow contact to be made. It is important to remember that all parties must hear all the proceedings unless they themselves decide to leave. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function. For the sake of recording, the chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues or to grab the attention of the chair or Democratic Services officer. The allocated public speaking minutes will be strictly adhered to. So that's our formalities dealt with. I can lose that one. Number one on our agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any?
Yes, Chair, Councillor Stuart Edwards and Councillor Margarita Wright.
Chair, Councillor Hodges is apparently in a waiting room. I'm not sure if he's having technical difficulties in joining, whether Democratic can help him with that. Chair.
I'm sure they can. While he's coming in on that, I will ask for your approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of March. All happy that I sign them as a correct record? Yep. No dissent on that. Thank you.
Chair, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Have you had Leighton Rowlands' apologies?
No. You've got apologies from Leighton, have you?
Yeah, he was trying to make it, but he was running a bit behind, so
okay.
I'll give his apologies.
Thank you very much, Vince. So I will sign the minutes. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Rightio. That brings us to the main part of the agenda. Excuse me. You will notice that we've got the building reg applications back on at 4. Are you all happy that we note these?
Move and note, Chair.
Yeah, I'll second. Okay, thank you. Agenda 5 is planning applications determined under the delegated powers. Happy with those?
Yeah, move and note.
Thank you. Second. Okay, agenda item 6 is appeals, and I'm sure Vicky is going to take great delight in leading us through this little report on appeals.
Thank you, Chair. I must admit the reason I've brought this report to you after us not having these types of reports for a while is because I'm delighted with the stats, as you'll see at the end of the report. So I won't crow too loudly because probably next month it'll fall through the floor. But for now, we're doing extremely well with our appeal success rate. So just a quick overview of the decisions that are set out in this report. We had a high hedge appeal dismissed on Sully Road. We don't deal with that many of these high hedge complaints, but they're under the sort of Antisocial Behaviour Act. But in this case, it related to a 12-metre high and 27-metre long boundary hedge, and clearly that was causing issues for the neighbour, and the appeal inspector agreed with our notice. Then we successfully defended an appeal against a refusal for a 2-bedroom dwelling on an end of terrace in Llandoch. And the main issue there was relating to the effect of the new dwelling on the sort of character and appearance of the area, and sort of crowding on what was a corner plot and an open plot on the bend of Uplands Crescent and Dock Dewey Road, and that area, for those of you that are familiar with it. So that was a good decision. We've then got 2 decisions for crossovers at Jenna Road in Barrie. Again, refused for 2 reasons: highway safety issues, but also appearance from the sort of parking and cars on the frontage and the associated removal of the walls. And the appeal inspector supported us on both of those appeals, and on both issues relating to highway safety and the character and appearance of the area. So 2 useful appeals there for highway crossover issues. And then finally, 8 Cliffside in Penarth, another appeal dismissed. This related to a proposed extension and largely issues of character and design and appearance that it was refused on, and again supported by the appeal inspector. So just at the end of the report then, it's the end of year statistics for 2020-2021, with a 90% success rate against planning appeals, 100% success rate for enforcement appeals, although there was only one of those, overall success rate of 90.5%. So really good year, considering the Welsh average, I think, is closer to the sort of between 60 and 70% of appeals. So really good end of year results for us there, and probably the best that we've had for a few years. So I can see Councillor, I think it's Wilson's got his hand up.
Yes, Mark.
Yes.
You wanted to come in?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment there. Can I thank the officers and also the planning committee members, obviously, because of the fantastic results here. 90% is well above the Welsh average, which is really terrific. But I'm also say that a lot of people seem to think, because they go to appeal, they got a very good chance of winning, and they haven't. So I think we do need to say, if we know people, constituents of ours, who are considering going to appeals, they'd be better off to try and renegotiate or discuss it with senior planning officers, and perhaps bringing members in from that perspective, rather than going to determination and then think they're going to win on appeal.
Yeah, quite, Mark. It's negotiation is always better than confrontation, I think. Okay, so item 7 on the agenda is
So I'll move and note the appeals.
Sorry,
Chair.
yes, thank you, and I will second. Thank you for that. Trees. Are you all happy that we note the tree allegation?
Note that.
Thank you. General planning matters. We have an update report on recent legislative changes under permitted development rights. Vicky.
Thank you, Chair. I thought this report would be useful to bring to you at this point in time, which sets out all the changes that Welsh Government have made to permitted development rights over the last year or so. Most of them relate to Welsh Government's response to the coronavirus pandemic, and ways in which the planning system can be more flexible to try and address some of the issues that arise from that. So if I can just briefly summarise and outline the report. Starting way back at the start of the pandemic, the Welsh Government introduced emergency development by local authority permitted development rights, and that is a very wide-ranging right for local authorities to carry out any kind of development on land owned, leased, occupied or maintained by them for the purpose of preventing an emergency, reducing, controlling or mitigating the effects of an emergency, and so on. So that includes things like tackling homelessness. It includes dealing with sort of health and medical facilities and so on. And the council has used those permitted development rights for things like the Home View Leisure Centre, vaccination centre, things like that. Shortly after that, that right was extended to health bodies as well, so that they can again respond to the pandemic and carry out permitted development on land that they own or control. Initially that was for a 12-month period for both of those sets of permitted development rights, but that has subsequently been extended to 18 months. after which it's expected that planning permission is sought, so that the long-term impacts of those kinds of developments can be assessed through a planning application. Following that, then there were further sort of procedural amendments, so amendments to the pre-application consultation and procedures, and this largely reflected the fact that many public buildings were closed to the public. So whereas we normally rely on our offices or libraries to display documents that maybe the public want to come and inspect, obviously that the ability to do so was very much hampered during the pandemic period, and still is. So changes to the pre-application consultation procedures, the development of national significance procedures to enable those documents just to be available electronically and available in hard copy on request. So just some procedural changes there, and similarly changes for community councils to have a slightly longer period to comment on matters, from instead of the 14-day period to a 21-day period, to extend to enable them to sort of change their scheduled meetings and so on, to enable them to comment on planning applications and pre-application consultation. Then the report talks about a couple of permitted development changes that are not as a result of the pandemic. One relates to permitted development rights for sheds and greenhouses and things like that on allotments. So that's a new right, and just something that obviously the Welsh Government felt was an important sort of omission in the old permitted development order. And some changes to the telecommunications development by electronic communications code operators, which is all very technical, and I'm not going to go into any detail on that, but it relates to antenna systems. And then much more recently, changes that will have effect from the 30th of April, so in the next couple of days, and will take effect until January 2022, are a range of permitted development changes relating to uses to respond to the pandemic, the impact on town centres and hospitality. So, for example, the first one relates to markets held by local authorities, and that gives an unlimited period for local authorities to carry out holding markets on their land. Then there's a whole host of temporary changes of use that are now permitted, which historically would have required planning permission. Now, those are set out in the report, so I won't go into them in any great detail, but it allows people to change from a shop into a restaurant or leisure use and that kind of thing, to enable businesses to respond to the issues they've had throughout the pandemic period, and to trial new things and so on. There are restrictions within this. For example, it doesn't include the sale of hot food for consumption off premises, because of the type of impact that you can associate with those. So those sort of things still need planning permission, and it relates to those types of uses within our town centres. So as paragraph 17 of the report sets out, our town centres are those that are defined in the local development plan. Those changes of use are permitted to take place for 6 months, beginning from the date on which that development took place. And if they want to carry on past that, they would then need to apply for planning permission. So it's a bit of a sort of trial period, really, for businesses to be able to react more flexibly. There are also then additional new rights for hospitality uses in terms of outdoor servery provision, so that having tables and chairs on the highway or land outside their premises, and also for awnings and other kind of enclosures to enable the sort of outdoor eating and drinking provisions that we've seen as a result of the coronavirus pandemic and the restrictions. So the report is just for noting for members. Happy to take any questions that you might have as a result of that.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. I see Mark Wilson has got a hand up there, and I guess you're all happy for us to note these once we've gone through any questions. Mark.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Vicky, for summarising those changes. But I just want some bit of clarification on the Class B Part 4A about holding a market. It says local authority. Does that only mean the principal local authority, or does that mean town and community councils as well?
I think off the top of my head, it just relates to the principal local authority, but I can check that and let you know. I'd have to check the regulations for the detail.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody happy that we note? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you
move a note.
very much. Thank you, Vicky. That brings us on to our one and only planning application, 007184. We do have a public speaker on this. Vicky is going to present to us. We will then hear from our public speaker and then have a debate. So I'll hand over to Vicky.
Chair, I can see Councillor Kemp has raised his hand.
Oh, yes, sorry, Councillor Kemp.
No, that was a premature raising of the hand. I'll put it down again.
That's quite all right, Gordon.
Thank you. In that case, I shall try and share my screen and hope that I find the right images. Bear with me. Right. Okay. Can you all see the plans?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so this application relates to the site edged red here at the top where my hand is moving, but the site edged blue relates to land also within the ownership of the applicant. The application now relates to a stable block shown on the screen at present, so for 2 stables, a polytunnel that you can now see on the screen. This is a small sort of timber outbuilding for storage. And the photos then on the screen, you can see this is the site that we're talking about. This is the entrance to the site. That's the dwelling over the road. And these photos just give you an indication of the site and the surroundings. Okay, just to flag up the Matters Arising report, which was sent out yesterday. So we have received comments from Llancarvan Community Council, who reiterate their comments to do with the appearance of the polytunnel being out of keeping with the special landscape area. And these matters are already covered in the report. And also further comments from a local resident, again raising matters that have already been addressed in the report. So bear with me while I just get to the report section. So this is now a full application for the erection of the stable, the polytunnel, a grasscrete track which is due to replace the existing hardcore track that's been laid at the site. As the report sets out, the site is outside the Llancarvan settlement boundary. It's just to the west of Llancarvan and the primary school, and up a sort of narrow single track lane up to the site. The land is agricultural land that has been purchased and is now being used for the grazing of ponies and for some hobby farming activities. So the development subject to this application is in relation to those activities. The application has been amended from a proposal that was originally submitted for a much larger agricultural building. And as I said, there are some buildings and a track on the site that are due to be removed, and the timber field shelter to be relocated, as now shown on the amended plans that I showed you just now. We have had letters of objection from local residents raising concerns with the sort of use of the site, the opening up of the access, the use of the access off the single track road, and that causing some issues relating to sort of sort of blocking the highway and visual impact. There are also some references to other activities going on at the land which are not subject to this application and not for the consideration of Planning Committee at this point in time. So I think I'll probably leave it there, Chair, and try and stop sharing my screen. And we've obviously got public speakers to hear from, and I'm happy then to take any questions.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Vicky. Yes, we do have public speakers. Well, a public speaker, and it's Mr. Brian Griffin speaking on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Griffin, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. I guess everybody else can.
You should be able to see me now.
Lovely. Okay, well, you will have 3 minutes from when I say go. I will be very strict on the 3 minutes. Once it's up, I will ask you to cease if you haven't already. It's only fair that everybody has the full, 3 minute time thing. And when you finish, then if you can just hang on, just in case there's any clarification needed on any points you raise. So if you would like to start your presentation now, please.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and councillors. I speak on behalf of Anita Carey, who cannot be here today, unfortunately. The application has been with the council for 8 months, during which time the scheme has been modified following advice from the case officer. It's a 9-acre site, and the applicant is not a full-time commercial farmer, but wishes to be a part-time farmer growing fruit and veg and keeping her 2 to 3 horses and to make and store hay. To do that, she needs some ancillary buildings and an access track to save rutting the land in winter. The buildings are small scale, a polytunnel, 30 feet by 15 feet, 2 stables with an overall size of 24 feet by 12 feet, a small store, 15 feet by 10 feet, to service the 9 acres of land, livestock and crops. It is somewhat of a chicken and egg situation in that until the buildings are in place, the part-time farming cannot operate fully as planned. Planning policy does support this situation by granting approval for buildings before such crops and stock are all in place. We note the concerns of the Clancarthon Council, but we would stress that part-time fruit and veg growing, hay making and keeping 2 to 3 horses is an appropriate and good use of agricultural land fringing a village. The produce will be available in due course for sale to local residents. The access track is 55 metres long, 3 metres wide. Without such a track, access to the buildings during winter months would be difficult and would harm the land. A footpath is well used through the field, but the buildings are well away from the footpath. The case officer has been tough in his negotiations, which we respect, and his support for the proposal is balanced and well considered. There are many similar types of developments on the fringes of Clancarthon, so this does not set a precedent, but allows an applicant to pursue her chosen work. Please support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You were well within your time there. If you just hang on a sec, any people or members of the committee would like any clarification on any of the points Mr. Griffin raised? No? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Griffin. I will ask you to turn off your microphone now and just watch proceedings and see where we go. Right, so Vicky, do you want to come back in at that point, or shall we go into debate then? Okay, Gordon, you, I guess, as local member, would like to come in first.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I originally asked for this matter to come before committee to have obviously the delegation removed because there was considerable concern in Clancarthon at this proposal, and those concerns were expressed through the community council who asked for it to come to committee. I think everyone is now pleased to see that there has been considerable changes to the original application. I must admit, if the original application had remained, I would have been minded to move refusal of this. But I've got to be honest now, the changes are welcome. It'll be interesting to see how this develops. So at the moment, I have no particular concerns over this now, except perhaps the polytunnel, which I think is reflected also by the community council still having concerns, but that's only part of the application. So I'm pleased that we've perhaps had something of a result on this in having the application considerably changed. So I would not oppose this afternoon.
Thank you, Gordon. I see Ben Gray, you have your hand up. Ben?
Yeah, in view of the person who's called it in not objecting to it and officer recommendations, I'd move those and ask that we vote on it.
Yeah, is everybody?
Second if you need a seconder, yeah.
Okay, we've got seconders coming around, but I think Andrew was first in. And by the way, welcome back to Planning Committee, Andrew. Glad to have you back.
Yes, thank you all, and looking forward to remaining on it. Many thanks.
Thank you. Good. Do we have any dissenters in this? Are we all happy that this goes with officer's recommendation? I'm not going to need a roll call vote. No. Please speak now or forever hold your peace. Thank you all very much. That will be what is noted and go on the minutes. Thank you all for your attendance. I don't believe we have anything other. I don't have any urgent items. So thank you all for your attendance. Thank you all for coming to planning training. Those that did, those that didn't, you missed a very good show, and I'm sure it will be available for you to catch up on. Thank you all. See you again soon. Thanks, Vicky. Thanks, James. Thanks to everybody. See you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon.
I will do my usual